This video is brought to you by Skillshare. In recent weeks, there's been increasing talk of a shutdown of the US government. While this might sound dire, the US government has been shut down on numerous occasions, and with increasing frequency in the last half century. Nonetheless, it appears that this shutdown is unique, because this time it's more a symptom of dysfunctional House leadership than squabbling between the executive and legislative branches, as is usually the case, with Speaker Kevin McCarthy apparently unable to keep both Republican moderates and hardliners happy. So in this video, we're going to have a look at exactly what's involved in a government shutdown, what's causing this one, and what the long-term consequences might be. So first, what is a government shutdown? Under the US Constitution, Congress is delegated with the responsibility of appropriating government funds. This is usually done through appropriation bills that fund the government through the fiscal year, if agreed to by the House, Senate, and the President. If the Congress and the President fail to come to an agreement regarding appropriations and the funding deadline passes, we have a government shutdown, since the government simply runs out of money to operate. Government shutdowns tend to affect numerous branches of the federal government, except essential services such as military, medical and postal services, as well as air traffic controllers. However, operations of the federal departments of state, treasury, defence, justice and any other federal department can be affected. Sometimes federal parks are closed and employees are not paid, as they're under the jurisdiction of the Department of the Interior. Federal court-appointed lawyers might not be paid for services to defendants, and TSA employees sometimes have to work without pay. So you get the idea. Usually, if they're resolved fast enough, shutdowns aren't catastrophic, but they still bring some friction into the operation of the federal government. Usually, government shutdowns are used to extract concessions from one federal branch over the other. The first modern use of this was in 1990, when President George H.W. Bush proposed his 1991 budget. The president was confronted by congressional Democrats who opposed his cuts to benefit programs and even some Republicans who did not support the tax hikes in the bill. This led to a 3-day shutdown until a deal was reached. This deal included increased taxation and was used against Bush on the 1992 campaign trail because he'd previously said,
"Read my lips. No new taxes."
And Bush subsequently lost the 1992 election. Under Bill Clinton, there were 2 shutdowns, both regarding disagreements between Clinton and congressional Republicans over spending plans. Obama experienced a shutdown in 2013 over the implementation of Obamacare, and Trump experienced 2 shutdowns in 2018 to 2019, with the latter shutdown being related to Trump's insistence on congressional spending for his border wall, which Democrats opposed. The point we're trying to make here is that shutdowns usually occur if there are conflicting parties in control of Congress and the White House, and when one party, usually Congress, wants to play a game of political chicken to extract concessions. In this sense, it's similar to the measures of the debt ceiling, but has much lower stakes. So, on to the second part of this video. What's causing this government shutdown? Well, it appears it seems to be more to do with internal fighting among the House GOP than any disagreement between Congress and the White House. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, presiding over a narrow 221 to 212 majority, has had a hard time keeping his caucus together. In order to keep his job, McCarthy has had to appease both the Republican hardliners, led by Matt Gaetz, as well as the more moderate Republicans. Hardliners, ever since the GOP took control of the House, have always advocated for, among other things, impeachment of President Biden to appease their base. Moderate Republicans have opposed this on the grounds that an impeachment of Biden would be a waste of time and actually just help the president, who would almost certainly be acquitted in the Senate. McCarthy tried to meet both sides in the middle, launching an impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden via an investigation into the business dealings of his son Hunter, but ultimately McCarthy still has to make a decision here. If he appeases the hardliners and backs an impeachment, it could help Biden and Democrats politically, and upset the moderates. On the other hand, if he sides with the moderates and refuses to back an impeachment, the hardliners have threatened to introduce a motion to vacate the chair to try and remove him from the speakership. In this light, there are two clear differences between other government shutdowns. First, this is a disagreement within the Republican Party instead of between Democrats and Republicans. And second, this is a disagreement within just the legislature, and specifically the House, instead of between the executive and the legislature. So, on to the third and final part of this video. What are the ramifications of a shutdown for both now and 2024? Well, if the government does shut down, barring any last-minute developments, it certainly would hurt the Republicans and, more importantly, Kevin McCarthy. It would reinforce the narrative that the House GOP cannot govern effectively and could hurt ballot races in 2024, where the congressional ballot is within the margin of error. If Kevin McCarthy caves to his right flank and impeaches Biden, it actually could help the president, who is really quite unpopular by historic standards. For context, according to 538's polling aggregator, Biden's net approval currently sits at about -14, which is basically the same as Trump at this point in his term and below every previous post-war president apart from Jimmy Carter. Anyway, unsuccessful impeachment efforts usually benefit the incumbent president. Both Clinton and Trump saw a polling rise following their impeachment acquittals, with Democrats using Clinton's impeachment to gain seats in the House in the 1998 midterms. Also, depending on the timing, the impeachment could help Biden against Trump. If Biden is acquitted by the Senate while Trump is found guilty in one of his criminal trials, it could paint a clear contrast between the two candidates, as both are widely expected to be their party's nominee, according to recent polling. The point being that the government shutdown, while being the event of the next weeks, could set into motion events that can impact the election. In conclusion, this government shutdown is different from previous years, coming out of internal differences within a party rather than differences between parties across the executive and legislature. And McCarthy has a difficult few weeks coming up. Ultimately, it'll probably end up helping the Democrats, reinforcing the Republican image as a divided party and potentially giving Biden an impeachment boost. But a lot depends on whether or if House Republicans can resolve their differences. Things are expected to change with a story like this, so make sure you stay on top of updates. That way you know what's going on, and let's be honest, it always feels great to stay on top of things. Even within TLDR, a few of us have been brushing up our InDesign skills in order to create the newspaper we're currently working on. It turns out that making a professional-looking newspaper is pretty difficult, so we headed to Skillshare to take their course on the topic. Unlike when I tried to learn InDesign for another never-released project a few years ago, this time I was guided through the process quickly and effectively, and this time the project will actually see the light of day thanks to Skillshare's incredibly easy-to-follow guides. It's not just that either. You likely already knew Skillshare for classes on things like photography, editing and illustration, but Skillshare also has hundreds of career-focused classes too. We all know at this stage that traditional jobs aren't one size fits all. I mean, I finished university and came straight into a job at a YouTube channel. That's not necessarily the path that you want to take, but the courses on Skillshare can help you design a career to fit you. There's courses on everything from how to start a business to maximizing your workflow or how to grow in e-commerce. Another course that Jack's actually taking to help with the newspaper project. And if you use our link, you can get access to all of that for free. That's right, the first 1,000 people to use the link will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare.